back here at Cabrillo, and we're checking on our benzoin synthesis. So the benzoin synthesis from benzaldehyde has been going on in the fume hood for a couple of days. We're going to check on it, and we're going to see what it looks like. I'll see you over there at the fume hood. All right, here we are. We've got our benzoin synthesis, and we're taking a look at it, and yes, it has solidified. However, I had the time lapse on it, and I was trying to catch that solidification as it precipitated out over the 2 days, and that did not work. The material was still liquid when I took a look at it, so there was nothing to see there, and I was concerned that it had failed, and so I added a tiny pixie dust bit of seed crystal, and it all went off super fast. And I should have known better. I should have put the camera on it so that we could film it and watch it crystallize as it did it. It was pretty cool, but missed it. So there's no going back. It's a 2-day synthesis, and we can see that it's all solid. The idea now is to ice it down and then set up a filtration apparatus, and we'll get it filtered. So that's our next step. Okay, so what you saw there was a little video of me setting up the filtration apparatus. We have our benzoin crystals. They're sitting in ice water, so we're making sure that we're lowering the solubility of that material in the solvent system, crystallizing out as much as we possibly can. I've got a little bit of DI water here that I'm going to rinse those crystals with. We're going to rinse it with about 3 mils of DI water. I'm going to ice that down as soon as I start to filter the crystals. I've got some pipettes here and some spatulas and some other things to help me do that transfer. And I'm going to move the camera, zoom it in, and we'll see how this all goes. Okay, I think I basically have the shot where I want it. So the paper's in there, and what we're going to do is we're going to close the apparatus, turn on the vacuum, make sure that that paper seats well. We're going to give it a little bit of water first. Wetting the filter paper helps the filter paper to stick down so that the crystals don't go underneath it. We'll take our benzoin material, loosen it up a little bit. We'll use a curved spatula to try to take it out on one side. The benzoin is pretty thick inside this. There's not a whole lot of liquid in order to be able to pour it, so it really does take quite a bit of scraping to make sure that we get the material out. We can rinse this with quite a bit of water, and in fact we do want to rinse this with quite a bit of water because we want to rinse all of the thiamine and sodium hydroxide out of our organic material, and you'll see that the color as we rinse it is already starting to change. As it filters, it's turning white. The yellow is really the solvent, and the thiamine that was reacted with the sodium hydroxide. So we'll rinse this now with a little bit of water. I'll rinse the Erlenmeyer flask first. Try to loosen up a little bit more of those crystals. And the amount of water that we use is not super critical because the benzoin is really not soluble in water. So we can do a little heavier rinsing here than we would in sort of a recrystallization. And again, we're doing a multi-step. Our next reaction is dependent upon how much we get on this reaction. And so we're trying to be careful to keep our yields high. Be careful about how we're getting all of our product out of this. Just going for all the big stuff we can. There is diminishing returns. At some point, we got to move on. All right, and we'll rinse this with a little bit of water now. I've already used about 1 mil. I'm going to use 2 more. Going for areas where I see a lot of color. Breaking it up a bit. Always having a second spatula handy is kind of nice. All right, we'll go for a little more rinsing, 1 more mil, and then we'll let air pull through this for about 5 minutes. At that point, we'll break it up a little bit more, and then we'll tear a petri dish, and we'll get a crude mass on this before we move on to recrystallization. All right, 5 minutes. We'll come back and we'll take this off. Okay, one more shot while this is still on the filter. How do I know that this material is ready to come off? Good question. So we just rinsed it with water, and as we've said before, water is super sticky. I think you can see now that the material, as I've been working it a little bit on the filter, being careful not to disrupt the filter pad itself, the piece of paper that's in there. What I'm doing is just chopping it up finely, trying to give it as much surface area as I can. And you can see that it's really starting to move more freely without getting stuck or clumping. That's when I know that it's about ready to take off the filter. Now, it's still going to weigh heavy. It's still going to have a lot of water in it. But we're going to weigh it. We'll get a weight on it today. And then we're going to let it dry for a bit before we do the recrystallization so that we can really get a yield on this reaction and then a good number on our percent recovery on our recrystallization. So I'm going to stop messing with it now, and we'll go get a weight on that petri dish. We'll come back, we'll take this guy off. Okay, we've got our petri dish. Get a label on this. This is going to be our crude benzoin. All right, 89.35. 2.5, let's call it. Oh, moved on. It's 2.4, 2.3, 2.2, 2.2. That's it. Calling it. Okay, so we're going to take this off the filter. We turn off the vacuum. We release the pressure. That just lets air back into the system because we've been pulling vacuum through it, and when that paper is wet, you can get some vacuum that is built up in the lines. If you don't release that, this Hirsch funnel is really hard to take off. So make sure there's no liquid sitting in the funnel. We don't want drops of liquid getting into our petri dish. Okay, and then as before, we just take this material out. A couple of good taps. Gently release the paper. And then I'm just going to switch spatulas and use a wider spatula that can be more effective at scraping out the sides. One of the things you miss on camera is all of the odors of each one of the compounds and solvents and all the things that we work with. This one has a slight smell that still smells a bit like benzaldehyde, a little bit of an almond smell to it. Not unpleasant and not too strong. I can't say that about most of the things that we work with, but this one's not too bad. All right, we'll get this over. Maybe we'll get a shot of this before we go weigh it. I'll show you what it really looks like up close, and then we'll go get a weight on it. Okay, just a quick cleanup on this material and to get the filter paper out of here. Now the filter paper is pretty darn wet. That's when we really got to be careful. That's when it's easy to tear it and easy to start pulling bits of paper fiber off. So we'll just go gentle with that. Set that aside. And then, as always, we just place our spatulas and let's take this and give it some more surface area. Any of the big chunks, try to get them broken up a little bit. And we know this is going to weigh heavy, like I said. Let's go weigh it, see what we've got. We'll let it sit. We'll come back, we'll get another weight, and then we'll do a recrystallization. And then we get to move on to making benzil. So this material will be oxidized in a nitric acid oxidation in order to make benzil. And that's kind of a fun reaction to do. All right, see you over at the balance. Okay, just a quick weighing here. Get our crude benzoin on the balance. Let's see what we've got. $89.85 and falling. It might continue to fall too because of the water that's in it. This is just supposed to be a rough weight. There we go, let's call it 89.8554.